Hello and welcome to Learn in Public with Doug and Erik. I'm Doug.
And I'm Erik.
And this is episode 3 of our new show here. Thank you so much for joining us. The one thing I want to mention up front is that if you have a question about any of the things that Erik and I talk about today, or you have a question about your own online creative work or online business that you're building, we would love to hear about that. And the best way to ask that question in a way that we will be able to respond to it in a future episode is by sharing a comment on YouTube. We would love to add as a third segment here questions that come in from listeners or viewers about your creative work or your online business. Because that's what Erik and I are here for, to support each other on each of our paths, and also other folks who choose to follow along with us.
We will also take ideas and advice. If you hear us say something that you disagree with, please let us know, because we are learning too.
Yeah, that's actually going to come into what I want to share since I'm in the hot seat this week. Part of it is going to be kind of some new stuff I'm putting out there and a request for feedback from others. So I'm really glad you pointed that out, Erik.
Well, I think I know what that is because I actually watched one of those last night and I thought it was pretty cool, but we're going to save that for later.
I like it. Since I'm in the hot seat, we got to hear from Erik first, some updates from the past week. Erik, what would you like to share to get us started?
I have to say, I had another amazing week on a personal and business level. Personally, I just found a new sense of words fail. But I did an interview with my friend Angelo about it on his podcast, Simply Always Awake. If you want to see it, or his YouTube channel, Simply Always Awake. If you want to see that,
I watched the first half of it. By the way, it's a great interview.
It was one of the, I don't know. It was just an amazing day, and it's been an amazing week. And second, I had...
Well, hold on. You got to give a little bit of a snapshot of give a brief description or teaser of what that was or how it... It's hard to share that without going into the whole story, but I
think I told Angelo it's effing ineffable. And in one sentence, maybe I would say what I took myself to be completely changed.
Yeah.
It's never happened to me before in my life, and I still don't feel like it was a thing that happened to me.
Yeah.
It's just
I was gonna write new sense of self if I were to summarize what you said, but it's not even that, because it's not watch part of the show, so it's a little bit of releasing of the self. It's this new sense of being.
Yeah, it feels like something that was me isn't me anymore, but there's still a me there. Anyway.
Well, that's a nice little teaser for folks who maybe want to go check out that conversation.
Sure. Yeah. It really is completely kind of different than this, but not, because for me, my business is very much tied to who I am.
Oh, yeah.
And I think it is for a lot of us, not all of us, but I mean, for you and I, definitely.
Yeah. I think for folks that enjoy our vibe and kind of how we approach this work, I think it's similar. So
yeah, and so that was one thing, and then along those same lines, what I'm thinking about for the future and business wise, things have aligned with that really perfectly. I talked with somebody again who got in touch with me who wants to do a trade for some sponsorship time on the podcast for his project to help me grow the business. He is in the he does marketing and online, helping online creators basically, and he also has a product called Magic Kids. So we have this partnership going that just kind of magically came out of the universe, and I'm really excited to be working with Bradley.
Cool.
Yeah. So
Nice.
those are the
Nice
highlights.
that you can kind of bring like a trade um, into
Right.
it.
Yeah, that's what I thought too. It was, like let's work together.
Yeah. Since that actually, there's a piece of that that relates to what I will be sharing in my update today. I'm curious about the sponsorship side of the the podcast. Um, and generally, maybe I'll put a pin in that because I'll bring that in with my share. Are there any updates? I didn't mean to kind of
No,
interrupt you there, but
that's pretty much it. We were going to try and
couple
make this
things going on
segment
there.
quick, so
Yeah.
I'll say that pretty much does it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Nice.
So hop in that hot seat.
Yeah. Well, last week I mentioned how I had kind of just got a new YouTube channel set up, a Doug Neill channel to kind of complement the Verbal to Visual YouTube channel. Uh, Already I have kind of come to a different place and might not continue developing the Doug Neill channel and might be focusing exclusively on Verbal to Visual. But to, I guess, kind of zoom out a little bit and work our way in here. In thinking about where kind of the role that video plays within my creative work and online business, the video side of things for me kind of serves two roles, I guess. It serves the purpose of marketing in that it's the way that people find out about my work. YouTube is the only place where I'm publishing my stuff outside
Mm-hmm.
of blog posts on verbaltovisual.com. So that's how folks are most likely to come across it on YouTube. But it also is a source of revenue through YouTube's AdSense program,
Right.
which is something that I didn't use at first and doesn't make up a huge, it's kind of like, I think roughly the income that I get from YouTube is about like 1/10 of what I get from Verbal to Visual memberships. That's
Sure.
the other side of my kind of revenue pie is, the single thing that I offer as a service is
Right.
that membership to Verbal to Visual, where folks can get access to sketchnoting courses and kind of the workshops that we do there each week and connect with other visual thinkers.
I just
So,
upgraded to a year
oh, hey, look at
last
you.
week.
Hey, thanks for doing
Yeah.
that. That's
Really
cool.
excited about it. I love it.
That's amazing. Yeah, so it's nice to be. I do like that focus on the offer side of it's just one membership that gets you everything, but there's a monthly plan or an annual plan. So there's still options for folks to kind of like test the waters a little bit, and if they like it and want to save some money, they can do the annual plan thing.
Can I jump in here with a question?
Please do.
So you have a week free, then you
Mm-hmm.
have a monthly plan, and then you have an annual plan. And
Mm-hmm.
I'm interested in starting a community as well. I'm just wondering like how you decided that whole thing, because pricing is such a difficult topic, and
Oh
I
my
think if you could
gosh,
just
yes it is.
quickly kind of share with people
Oh,
how you made
absolutely.
that decision.
Um, Through trial and error and experimentation. Some things I've done in the past was I used to sell each course individually, like a one-time fee for lifetime access to each of the individual courses. I also had some bundles where you could get a handful of courses together for kind of a discounted price. Um, when I switched over to Mighty Networks, I kept that model of pricing per course, but then added like, and if you want access to these extra community events, then you can also sign up for the Verbal to Visual community. That's when it
Oh,
felt like it
okay.
got messy. I had pricing per courses and I had a community. Some things overlapped, some things were separate. It felt too complicated. So I
Okay.
wanted to simplify it all down to like one offering, a single membership, get you access to everything. And then at first I just had monthly. When I first switched to a membership only model, it was just the monthly option. And I think I started it out at what it is now, which is $19 per month, which is kind of on the lower end of the spectrum for Mighty Networks. I think a number they encourage is about 49 or so
I think
dollars per month,
yeah, 40,
40
somewhere in the
something.
40s. Yeah.
Um, with the idea of like, okay, build a smaller, vibrant community as opposed to a larger, um, maybe less vibrant. Though I feel like verbal to visual is pretty vibrant.
That's
And
interesting.
there's something I like about that price point, in terms of it being like I want it to be affordable. So I like that aspect of it. I noticed with the monthly, like when I first introduced um, it steadily grew over time. Like one of the things that I pay attention to is this concept of monthly recurring revenue.
Hmm.
MRR is a term that you'll hear in business speak. And that's the benefit of going with the membership model is that your monthly income is more stable. There's going to be ups and downs because a certain number of people will cancel, a certain number of people will sign up each
Yep.
month, but generally you can kind of see where things are going.
That's how it is with
Um,
the Patreon for the podcast. Same
oh
thing.
yeah, I bet
Some people
so.
sign up
Okay.
for a year, some people pay monthly.
Yeah. What I noticed is that when I only had the monthly option, it grew steadily for a while, but then it flattened out. I was like, that's interesting. So like month to month, kind of like the same number of people were canceling as subscribing.
Hmm.
And I was like, okay, that's interesting. I would like that to be higher. So like, let's try adding in an annual subscription, um, at a discount. I think the annual, is 149. So it's a pretty decent. I think it's a 35% discount for
Yeah.
doing the year. And it's kind of it can be an easier decision for folks who join and like it and be like, okay, let me just pay for this once a year and I get to hang out and it's like I don't have to worry about it every month. It's a level of commitment and that caused me to then see like, oh, then again, once I introduced the annual, it kind of started the MRR started steadily climbing up again.
Okay.
So that's kind of how I landed. You're throwing a dart at a board when it comes to pricing and like hoping you get someplace
Sure.
that kind of works out pretty well. Um, but that's what I landed on. Both of those have no matter what you sign up for, there's a week long free trial, and you can switch from one to the other, once you're inside of verbal to visual, as Eric mentioned. That
Cool.
all makes
Thank you.
sense.
Yeah, it does. Thank you.
Yeah. Um, so I felt pretty good about that. And generally, I feel good about kind of what's going on inside of verbal to visual. So we've got a nice set of like, uh, we've got a good cadence in terms of what goes on there each week and the ways in which folks are participating. That feels good, which is kind of why in terms of kind of developing new things or experimenting, that's what I'm doing on the YouTube channel right now. Because I feel like a phrase that I've used for years now is that, I don't feel like I've hit my stride on YouTube and I want to. Like I've done experimentation with a bunch of different formats. I'll stick with something for a while, but then change it up. And um,
You got a lot of
uh,
followers.
it's slowly it's growing, slow but steady.
Yeah.
Something around like 82,000 maybe at
Yep.
the moment.
Hades, I saw.
I think it's around like 500 or 600 per month or so is the number of folks that are joining there.
Hmm.
But the views on any individual video that I put out are relatively low. Um, or at least like lower than I want them to be. Like it
Hmm.
takes them a while to even get to like 1,000 views. Takes
Okay.
quite a while. So there's not and that's common, it's going to be some small percentage of your total subscribers that actually view any individual video,
Right.
depending on where you're at. But I don't expect 82,000. I don't expect everyone to watch, every video, but I would like to kind of bump up to try to find a format that I enjoy making, that others enjoy watching, and that just like feels like there's some momentum going with the YouTube channel.
Do you ever
So like,
use anything to like to get information about like what's a good title? Like there's this website called TubeBuddy
hmm
that I saw Teppo Hapoha talk about. I don't know if that's how you
yeah,
say his name, but I thought that was kind of interesting. He was doing his whole like behind the scenes. Here's how I do YouTube video, and he said, "Oh, and then I check." The title in TubeBuddy to see if it's gonna, like if it hits all the things.
yeah. I briefly looked at a couple of those. TubeBuddy is one, vidIQ is another that I explored not too long ago. They are kind of like tools that help with SEO in a
Mm-hmm.
way, like help you see what other people are searching for. Some of them even give suggestions about like titles for new videos that you might make. I'm not very interested in that. So
Okay.
like this gets into like how much of the YouTube game do I want to play?
Right.
Um, which kind of actually gets into the main question that I've been asking myself as it relates to the creation of videos on YouTube. This question of what am I optimizing for?
Mm.
This comes from an interview that I sketchnoted years ago now between Jim Collins, author of the book Good to Great, um, uh, and some other books that I'm forgetting now. Jim Collins went on Tim Ferriss's podcast and had a
Mm-hmm.
great conversation. And one of the things that he talked about was, um, as he thinks about his day and his life, what is it that he's optimizing for? I don't remember the specifics. One of them was like time spent with family, time engaging in meaningful work. But like, I think this is a good question for people like us to explore and try to answer for ourselves, as it relates to life in general. But then maybe specifically zooming in on the things that you're making. So as
Right.
I was asking myself this question, uh, as it relates to the videos that I make, an interesting thing came up in that uh, realizing how much time I spend editing with my typical video is kind of ridiculous. Like I can edit. I know how to like do, I mean, relatively basic video edits.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I don't particularly like enjoy it.
Oh,
Um, so
yeah,
I've
that's
kind
no
of
good.
realized that, okay, maybe I want to land at the at the smaller side of this like time spent editing
Mm-hmm.
section, uh, and kind of the reverse of that, or what that could create. The space that could create could be dedicated to time spent learning new things, reading books, listening to podcasts, and actually doing my own sketchnoting. Um, so that's what I kind of want to optimize for. And again,
Gotcha.
this can be little and lots. Um, Another of the things that kind of came up as I was thinking about the two YouTube channels, Verbal to Visual as a place to support sketchnoters, Doug Neill as a place to just share interesting ideas. I
Mm-hmm.
mentioned how like there are two distinct audiences that I was hoping to make videos for.
Mm-hmm.
Verbal to Visual being this kind of narrow audience of people into visual note taking. The Doug Neill YouTube channel being very broad and like people interested in um, interesting ideas. And once that was out there, that I mentioned before, like how sometimes you kind of just need to put stuff out there and like taste it to see if you like how it feels.
Oh, totally. I get that.
Once I put that out there, I think I realized that um, the the desire, there was less appeal to reach that mass audience, or attempt to reach that mass audience with
Yeah.
the Doug Neill YouTube channel.
So it
So it's
tasted
like,
funny.
okay, yeah, I realized that like once I put that first video out, as I was thinking of, brainstorming future videos and getting excited about a bunch of them, they all fell into the verbal to visual bucket. And I
Mm-hmm.
wasn't like getting excited about making videos for the Doug Neill YouTube channel.
Okay.
It's like, okay, maybe I'm okay going with a narrow audience as opposed to a broad audience.
Mm-hmm.
Most, business builders will tell you that it happens to be easier to build something for a well-defined group of people as opposed to a broad group of people. So that kind
Yeah.
of fits within that advice as well.
And it's
Um,
also difficult sometimes to start from scratch with a new project when you're already, like so much of your time is in something else that's
Absolutely.
working.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm running
Yeah.
into this same thing. So I feel all this very hard.
Yeah. That is something that comes up again and again every time, like the idea of starting something new is tantalizing because there's like that new energy to it. This
Right.
came up kind of last week with kind of what we explored with you with Awaken Your Myth and Listen to Sleep. Um, uh, I think it's easy to underestimate even just the mental strain of like, okay, now there's two things I have to be working on instead of just one thing. Uh, Regardless of like the time spent on each of those, like the mental shifting or how much space that can take up in your brain
Yeah.
is not insignificant.
Yeah. No, I
Um,
agree. I agree.
the last one that I'll add here is related to the feel of my videos. Um, where I'm landing currently, and this gets to kind of a new format that it sounds like you have seen, Erik. And on one side of video creation can be in person, real time, like what we're doing with this show here. There can also, on the other side, be this kind of like fast and fancy form of editing that people are probably more familiar with on YouTube, like quick jump cuts, lots of scenes, imagery pulled in from like story blocks or, whatever video references people are using,
Hmm.
kind of high stimulus type of video.
Yeah.
Um, I'm kind of recognizing that I don't want to do the fast and fancy thing. I don't think I want to have all these like quick jump cuts. And I think I want to try not even like speeding up the drawing of my videos. It's been kind of my main approach for the videos that I've made for years has been to record the sketch note as I draw and write things out, and then record my narration separately
Hmm.
so that I can speed up my drawing and writing to fit with the narration,
Hmm.
which is kind of a cool format. But for teaching visual note taking, it might not be the best because like there's a little bit of a disconnect when one thing is sped up and the other thing is not, I guess.
Yeah. I think you're kind of I get what you're saying, and I think you're getting more in touch with your inner Bob Ross.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
Bob never sped anything up.
Right.
Bob took his time. And
Um,
that was one thing I definitely got from this new style. I thought it was really like it had that Bob Ross feel to it. And like you get the sound of the marker on the paper, and there's just like it's like spending some time together,
yeah.
which I really liked. So I'm kind of excited for you to see what this turns into.
Yeah, I'm glad you mentioned Bob Ross because that there is someone else. It wasn't Bob Ross that specifically I had in mind, but I do think he is a good kind of reference point. I've been getting into Adam Adam Savage's Tested YouTube channel. I don't know if you're familiar, Eric, with Adam Savage. He was
No.
one of the co-hosts of Mythbusters.
Oh, yeah,
Um,
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Before that work, he was involved in the movie industry, making these models that were used in movies like
Right.
Star Wars and like cool, interesting props.
Right.
So his YouTube channel is it's called Adam Savage's Tested. It's like a maker. It's a channel for makers, kind of
Cool.
all kinds. So like he's got this cool workshop where he's building things all the time and he just documents them.
Neat.
Um, and a lot of his occasionally there will be these little like time lapse sections, but a lot of it's in real time. It's kind of slower paced. He's talking through what he's doing. There's not this sense of like rushedness
Yeah.
to, he's not trying to make like 3-minute videos
Right.
um to explain something super short. There's a pace and a feel to his work that is also kind of similar to Bob Ross, that I appreciate. I feel like he's got uh, yeah,
That's
kind
cool.
of he's got kind of messy hair. Bob Ross has got the afro. So yeah, that was just a helpful reference point for me. And I think a person and a type of work that influenced how I want to try making videos myself. So I guess to summarize where I'm at and put this out as a request for feedback, um, to hear how these types of videos that are landing to other people. I gotta pull this index card off the screen or off the wall in front of me. Like I came to the decision, it'll probably be hard to see this, a few days ago, that like my goal is zero editing, doing it all live, like starting today.
Mm.
Um, and the thing that feels important to me about that is like once you allow yourself to, if you know that you're going to edit the video, you it's harder to keep your pace going. It's too easy to like reword something 100 times until you feel like you got it right, or to
Sure.
feel like you messed up the drawing and you have to start over.
Yeah.
Like, and there's something about the commitment to doing it real time, that feels important. So that's kind of what I'm committing to. And the thing that I now need to get good at is writing and drawing at the same time, basically, which
Yeah.
can be a hard thing, but that's what I'm working on. Uh, I've got a bunch of videos
Do you
that
mean
I'm
writing and
excited to
drawing at the
make.
same time, or speaking and drawing at the same time?
All of those things,
All
actually.
of
Yeah, I
those
said it
things.
wrong, but drawing and speaking at the same time,
Yeah.
mainly.
Yeah.
Um,
Bob Ross, huh?
yeah,
He,
yeah,
happy little clouds.
yeah. So that's where I'm at. That felt a bit rambly, but
No, not at all. That's very interesting because see, I'm at the other end of that. I love editing,
mm,
and and part of what I loved about my TikTok channel when I was making the walks with Bodhi videos, um,
yeah,
which I pretty much stopped doing that at the beginning of the summer. Um, but I loved taking all those shots. You know, a 60-second video would be 30 shots, 2 seconds, 2 seconds, 2 seconds. And it was
mm,
quick cuts, but to make something peaceful. So there was this
oh yeah,
strange kind of juxtaposition to it. Um, but I kind of burned out on it, basically.
mm,
And I wanted to do something longer form, which is kind of what I'm hoping YouTube will wind up being. And I spent some time this morning doing that. But I get what you're saying, where, like you really got to find your groove of what is the thing you want to make consistently and
mm-hmm,
fits with who you are. Can we go back to the optimizing thing for a minute? I have a question for you.
Yeah, and I'd be curious to hear for you if there are other things that you optimize for, but go ahead with your question.
Well, when you kind of like you said you looked at optimizing like the uh, through TubeBuddy and optimizing the titles and stuff. I was wondering why you decided that wasn't something you wanted to do, because it seems like if you're putting all this work in and one title will get more viewers than another, like it's just, because somebody who knows how to make the algorithm works. If you make do you make your titles before your video? Do you make a title and then go, I'm going to make this video? That's kind of what I think Teppo was saying he does. Or do you make your video and then put a title on it after, which is like what I do?
Yeah, that's something that I'm kind of trying to shift right now, actually. Um, I do the things that I want to have before I start recording um, are like index card brainstorms. So I want, a reference. I want a visual reference before I hit record. I do
Mm-hmm.
want to have both the title of the video at least brainstormed, but then also the like one paragraph description for the blog post.
Okay.
I mention that because like a hindrance for me sometimes in getting videos out, like you'll finish a video and then you realize, man, I still have to come up with a title. I still have to come up with a description and a thumbnail. I have to write the blog post. Depending on what you're doing, there can be so many steps after you finish the video. And
Right.
that just is frustrating. So that's why I've decided to like try creating all of these things first.
Mm-hmm.
They also help you think through the video so that it's a quicker transition from making the video to publishing it. And I will say that it is this right here, plus the thumbnail. Those are the two places where I do try to experiment and like adjust titles until it feels like it's something that's most likely to hit the YouTube algorithm well.
Yeah.
So even if I'm not like using those tools necessarily directly to do that, you can still use just your built-in analytics inside of YouTube to see kind of your click-through rate as you
Okay.
experiment with different titles. Give it one title for a day, the next day switch it to a different title, see if your click-through rate changes.
Oh, that's
Um,
cool.
you can
Yeah, I
do
never
that
thought
with
about
titles
that.
and thumbnails. I haven't spent a ton of time on that. Um, and again, like this is one of the things where I go back and forth. Like I probably should spend a little time there. I don't want to spend a lot of time there.
Right.
And I think my channel and my business will be fine. Even if I don't spend an hour each day experimenting with titles and thumbnails.
Ultimately,
So
it's better to have good stuff than to have good titles. If you can get
yeah,
both, all the better,
exactly.
right?
It's
Well,
not insignificant though, for sure. Like the
this
title
kind
and
of
thumbnail
leads me
are super
to
important.
what we were going to finish with
Yeah.
today was
Yeah.
going through what do we call this and what's the description. Do you
Oh,
think
perfect
next
transition.
week we should try doing this podcast episode like you do your videos, where we start with going, what's this called? What are we going to talk about?
Mm,
And just try that, like flip it around. Do it this way this week, do it the other way next week.
that's interesting. Uh, it feels like I think if we so next week you're going to be in the hot seat,
I'm going to be in the hot
and I
seat.
feel like the title and description of our show here is going to be more. It's going to come from the hot seat as opposed to like the maybe smaller updates in the beginning.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so I could see it making sense. Like if you wanted to, this would kind of be on you. We could workshop it at the beginning if you wanted.
Real quick,
We
yeah,
could
we could
try
just do
to,
it together.
yeah, just as an exercise of being okay. Like what's the title and thumbnail, or what's the title and description as we get into this conversation?
And you could kind of
Because that's a
walk
good
me through
framing.
your process, which I think is really interesting because I never do it that way,
Yeah,
and I would like to.
yeah,
Let's try it.
yeah. I like that because then that also like does a good job of framing what's coming next. Like
Yeah.
as opposed to, you know, people following along here might not necessarily, they might not have known where I was going as I started talking about videos and whatever. If I had identified, or if we had identified a title
But they will by
beforehand.
the time they see it, because they're
That's
going to see the
true. They
title,
will
which is what
see
we're
it
going to do now.
beforehand. That's really interesting. Let's get to that. So what do you think the title of this episode of Learn in Public with Doug and Eric should be?
Hmm.
We can do some brainstorming. I'll think on it too.
I think, let's see, you talked about.
Well, I'm seeing this
I
right
think
here.
what am I optimizing for is pretty good. Yeah. Or something along those lines. What are you optimizing for? Because
Yeah.
people are gonna be like, they're gonna have questions like, oh, what do I optimize for? So if we phrase it that way, that's probably better.
Yeah. I like that. Um, let's go with it.
Okay.
Uh, thumbnail. What we've been doing for the YouTube thumbnails for this show here is, keep me in a corner. We put Eric in the other corner, just as you're seeing on this video.
Stay in your corner.
Stay in your corner. Don't put you over here. Don't come over here. You stay
I
there.
couldn't get over there if I wanted to. Wait, which side am I don't know which side I'm
Um, but like the thing about YouTube, like you pointed this out with some of our earlier episodes, if we put the full kind of sketch in the background, that's not a very good thumbnail, because it's
on.
people aren't going to be able to see any of the details when they're looking at the thumbnail version of this.
Right.
So I kind of want to zoom in on like Bob Ross and Adam Savage a little bit, because like that's, you get some
Sure.
people in there and you kind of get the spectrums a little bit that we were talking about. Um,
Yeah.
does that feel like a good frame for a thumbnail, you think?
Sure. Yeah, that's
Yeah.
fine. That sounds good.
All right. So we'll
Yeah.
do that. And what I just to speak through that process, since um I edit these videos, like I take Eric's image, which as I'm seeing it, he's got his green screen in the background. I'll put him over there. And then within Adobe Premiere Pro, one of these frames here, I will just export that to use as the thumbnail image, so that we have that in place.
Can we could we maybe take and put Bob and Adam next to each other and put what are you optimizing for over
Ooh,
the
sure.
top, kind of, and make like a
Yeah.
new, because you
A
can,
little title.
yeah, you're like, you've got all the editing capabilities with your tablet there.
Yeah. I want
Cool.
to stay pretty zoomed in, and then maybe I'll get a different color here and say, here's the thing. Actually, I want to try this. Since the title of the video is what are you optimizing for?
Sure.
When I see like people using
Doesn't
text
need to
within
be
their
in there.
thumbnail,
Yeah.
yeah, but there is always something usually like it, but it's a different phrase than what the title is.
Mm-hmm.
So I want to refer to something that's about these guys.
Okay.
So maybe like uh let's do a Bob Ross quote, because that's going to be like probably the most resonant or recognizable.
Happy little
Um,
clouds.
it could be happy little clouds. Does he say something about like there are no mistakes, or
He does. Yeah. Yeah. There are no. I like
what's
there are no mistakes. That's good.
there are no
Or
mistakes? Happy little clouds is going to be more recognizable for sure.
we could also have doing it live, but that's just what he
Right.
does, not like the what
Yeah.
he says.
That's the O'Reilly rant
Um,
quote from way back when, but um
Ross quotes. This is what I always do. Happy Little Accidents. He had a book called
oh yeah,
Happy Little Accidents. Let's call
let's
it
do
that.
that.
Yeah, that
Yeah.
sounds good. I didn't know Bob Ross wrote a book. That's great.
I want to make that a little bigger even. Um, cool. I like that even better. Uh,
Okay.
we've got some text to stand out, plus some sketches there. Cool. Thanks for doing that at the end of the show here. We hope that that's a helpful things for viewers and listeners to like see us work through that process in real time. Um, and
So, what did we learn today?
what did we learn today? Yeah. I think
I
with
once
so
again, oh, go
yeah, go
ahead.
ahead. Um, I feel like for me, the way I came into this is like, okay, I wanted to have a place to share my how I'm currently thinking about making videos, um, to see if like I might be on the wrong track, right? Like there's still testing to be had. I still have to make these types of videos, put them out, and see how other people react. But a conversation like this, part of it is to see like for Erik to be able to look, and he knows my work well enough to see if like are there any red flags here about the way I'm creating it? Is there alignment with like who I am and also who I'm trying to serve with my work? Um, so Erik, do you see any red flags in my approach that I described?
I don't. I see that like you just, I would run with it and see what happens, Like I noticed you made your first video was 30 minutes. And that, like that's a good place to start. See what people watch. I didn't watch it all the way to the end, but I was also kind of doing something else while I was watching it. But I loved the vibe. And like I said,
Mm,
I also kind of like, I was thinking maybe if you just turned up the marker sound just a hair, because I loved that sound. It was just because you don't get any of that with when you're doing the tablet.
yeah.
But,
Or when you're
but
doing the sped up, if the sketching is
right.
sped up, like
Yeah.
I cut the sound out.
Yeah.
So that is I want the soundtrack to be marks being made on the page. So I like that
Yeah. Or if you had a
suggestibility.
pencil sometimes, that would also
Okay.
make a great sound. So you could almost like bring in this just ASMR kind of very cool audio aspect. But
Yeah.
I love it. And like I was like, oh, this is fun because I had actually asked in your community, like, can you do like some more of the drawing part? Because I'm not
Mm.
much of a drawer. My sketch notes are mostly notes. So anyway, I think it's great. And I'm fully enthusiastic behind you continuing.
Awesome. Thank you. That's kind of what I needed to hear. How about you? Any takeaways or highlights that you would like to identify at the end of the show here?
Um, I think I really enjoyed hearing how you priced your membership. I think that's really valuable stuff. And I would encourage anybody else who has questions about that to definitely ask Doug. I haven't got mine going yet, so that was useful for me. Um, yeah, so that was a big thing for me. So thank you for that. And the whole thing, I think
Awesome.
this
Happy to
was
share.
a good episode.
Yeah. Well, Erik, thanks for chatting. Viewers and listeners, thanks for following along. Another reminder, if you want to share a question that we can respond to in a future episode, drop that in a YouTube comment, and
Or
we'll
on
see you next
Spotify.
time. Yeah, or on Spotify. Yeah,
Yeah.
go check us out there too. The video version is also on Spotify if you didn't know
Yep.
that. It's really cool. All
All
right,
right.
we'll
Take
see y'all
care.
next week.
Bye.